You are
Yeah.
awesome. Woohoo! Yeah. And thank you, Justin, for coming out as well. We appreciate it.
Hey, Justin, thanks for showing
I thought we
up.
were going out. We were coming outside. That's what.
Oh, no, we're not. Oh, we are live over at YouTube. Let's save this
live.
primo material for the show that we are going to start in 3, 2. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are coming to you live from a couple of different places on the internet. We are coming to you live from Crowdcast. We're coming to you live from YouTube. Or maybe you're listening to us later on a podcast on iTunes, Android, or whatever platform. Maybe you're listening on a rock. I don't know. I don't want to judge. It's all good, brosif. Yeah.
Hard cut off. All good, brosif. Our tagline.
Well, guys, we have a lot of stuff to talk about today. We have a lot of stuff to go through, even here in the intro, and we have 2 great guests coming up on the show. But first, it is that time. Once a month, we pay tribute to the amazing folks that support us over at Patreon by reading off a very long list of names, and every time, we nail it.
Oh, stop with
100%.
that.
It's going to be real easy to do it when I'm on Woodland Wi-Fi. I really nailed it.
You're plugged into one of those rocks I was talking about that you listen to podcasts from, right?
100%. My antenna's a birch tree. My router is a rock.
So if you'd like to support us, patreon.com/comic book club. But we are going to read off the names of the folks that support us at the level where we thank them and above right now. Hey, if you blow that, man, we're not calling out your name. That's all I'm saying. You got to jack up the price there. This is important. Aaron C. Hollis.
Marks.
Adriel Moreland.
Elena Fontenot.
Amanda Harris.
Amy Gonzalez.
Andrew Edge.
Andrew Primo.
Andrew Tillman.
Benjamin Brown.
Carly W.
Christina Jaramillo.
Chris Terlizzi.
Clemens Luer.
Curtis LaRock.
Deman Ryan.
Dan Snow.
Dancer, Danny Cabral.
Daniel Fuentes.
Daniel Wharton.
Rounding out the Dannies, we got Danny Heck.
And sort of a Danny, but not exactly, Dennis Scott.
Derek Mainhart.
Derek Mainhart doubling it up.
Dylan LJ.
Eduardo Martinez.
Emmett Quish.
Aaron Durian.
Jeffrey Risher.
Gerard Devilliers.
As Isaac Carter. I was about to go Isaac Cartel.
Yeah, let's get weird.
Yeah.
Connolly.
James Kurtz.
Jason Donahue.
John George.
Jonathan John.
Jonathan McCool.
Joshua Gibson.
Joshua W. Broxton.
Catherine Anenson.
KC New Haven.
Kevin Grimes.
Kevin Kleinrock.
Kieran Broderick.
Cody Thomas.
Kyle.
Lee Brown.
Lucas Sink.
Mark Carrillo.
Mark Zeller.
Matt Tice.
Megan Thigpen.
Michael Tillman.
Mike Dargenio.
Mitchell McDonald.
Nelson Martinez.
Nick Broughton.
Nick Grayson.
Off-White Savior. Ooh,
Official CBC chef Brett Macris.
Omnia Soul Art.
Oren Dix.
Pablo Martinez.
Pedro A. Rangel.
Pete's Pretty Kitty.
Oh, I met that kitty last week. Primetime Paulie.
Oh, yeah.
Rev Mikey.
Sarah Schottenmuller.
Sarah Schaefer.
Scott Carpenter.
Scott England.
The man named Stanley.
Tamela Rush.
The Big Flood.
The 12 Bench.
Victor Perez.
Will Buchanan.
William Litch.
And Zika's Viral Comics. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for your support. It is awesome. We really appreciate it. It really, honestly, does keep the show going and support everything we do, including the amazing drinks that we make on the show. That's what we're going to talk about right now. Going to give a shout out here. As we mentioned, our official chef, CBC chef Brett Macris, has been curating a drink a week from Gotham City Cocktails by Andre Darlington. This week's cocktail is called the Smoke Pellet. And you smoke a cinnamon stick, and you put it in there with some spicy chili liquor. It's real good, folks.
It looks good. I mean, no, sorry. I bet it tastes good. It looks like swamp water. Like straight up Swamp Thing pee-pee.
Great. Do you think Swamp Thing has to
yeah, he's in the water all the time, so it's free reign.
Oh yeah, it's like a pool. It's like a public swimming pool.
I'm on a lake right now. Beer Cat PhD shouting out, don't knock Swamp Thing PP until you've tried it. It's exactly right, because as we're going to learn in our throwback stack, where we're covering Swamp Thing Volume 1 by Alan Moore, some of the stuff that comes off that Swamp Thing is edible as hell.
I love it when you plug things that we haven't done or haven't planned yet, because
we haven't done and we haven't planned that yet. That's what you call an early plug.
Well, let's plug something that is already out by bringing our first guest into the stream here. She is the writer of the new book, Just Pretend, which is out now from Little Brown. Her name is Tori Sharp. Ladies and gentlemen, hello, Tori. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks.
Good.
How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for coming on the show. So I mentioned this to you before we went live, but this book over here, Just Pretend, which I have a physical copy of, gave to my daughter. She loved it. It's super fun, super sweet, but it's also based on a true story of your life. So what is that like, taking your life and putting it down on the page like this?
Do you mean the process of doing it, or just emotionally what it's like?
I mean, a little bit of both,
really. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, emotionally, it's very satisfying and also super scary. I think it was way scarier to do memoir than it would have been to do fiction, which is partially why I'm really excited that my next book is going to be fiction. But I am very, very glad to have made this book and that it's out there. I think I said something in the author's note too about how once you put your childhood down on paper, you feel a little bit removed from it too. So it's really strange trying to remember things from that period of time now that I've made it into a cartoon as opposed to before, because I feel like the memories of it get kind of mixed up with the drawings that I did along the way too. So it's there, and it's also completely changed now that I've done the book. And as for like the actual process of turning your life into a book, I started by just sort of writing down everything I could think of from my entire life that had anything to do with the topic of divorce, because that's really where it started. My parents divorced when I was like 3. So it was something that I grew up with and thought was totally normal. And it is normal for tons of kids. So I wanted to write a story where I just show what my experience was like, and where kids could point to it and say, that's a real person. She actually had the same experiences as me, or slightly different, but at least they'll feel seen. Because a lot of the books that I read when I was growing up that showed a kid with divorced parents, usually they just live with like their mom or their dad, but not both. And I found with me and my friends, it was a lot more common that we would swap houses, or like my experience that I wrote about in Just Pretend was that I lived with my mom most of the time, but I would spend every other weekend with my dad and have dinner with him once a week. And that's the story that I've seen repeated a lot more often with other kids.
It's interesting to hear you say that you went for something non-fictional, because half of the book is the fantasy world. That is it you, or is it this character? Which way would you refer to it? Is it actually you in the book, or is it a fictionalized version of you?
With Tori in the book, or with the fantasy characters? Well, I do. Yeah. I do consider Tori in the book to be a character, because you can't represent your entire self in like a protagonist in a comic that takes like 2 hours to read. So she's absolutely based on my experience, but anybody who writes memoir has to think of the character as outside of themselves and be able to project like a narrative arc onto a character, whereas life doesn't always make sense.
Right, sure.
Yeah, but the two characters in the fantasy story are also representative of like opposing facets of myself. Yeah.
Just a follow-up question on the sorry. When you're talking about you wrote everything down. How did that work then, as you sort of had all those personal details down? When you sort of approached them, was it then the character that you were sort of picking up, or how did you make that full transition in between the two?
So I wrote that really long draft that was basically from birth until present day, and then I showed that to my agent, and he helped me pull out the pieces of it that felt like they would be really great in a book. Having feedback from other people really helps when you're stuck like that. And I think I had a pretty good idea of where it needed to go, or what pieces of the story were important. A lot of it ended up circling around my friendship with Taylor, and a lot of the pieces that my agent, Brent Taylor, from Triada US. He was pulling out some parts of the story where Taylor and I like taped mailboxes to the back of our chairs in our classroom, and we would leave messages for each other between classes. Little things like that they're so random it would feel weird to put them in like a fictional book, but things like that actually happen, and kids do stuff like that all the time.
That's awesome. One of the things I liked was how you kind of started as a kid and you would like draw comics about your life and kind of like your dog's adventures. I myself would like, I had a tree fort and I would kind of do kind of like cartoons of myself just to kind of like process things like that. Like, what was it that kind of like drew you to sitting down and kind of drawing things out? Was it just something that made you feel good, or was it something you saw somebody doing?
When I was a kid, I think drawing was something I turned to in school because it was just a good way to fidget and use my hands when I was restless. So I didn't think I was very good at drawing when I was a kid, and I didn't expect it to become a career. I just liked it. And then when I started writing comics as well and drawing them, I wasn't thinking so much about how I was processing my life. I just felt like it was the coolest thing I'd ever done, and I wanted to keep doing it forever.
That's awesome.
Looking at the fictional part here, was this something that you wrote when you were a kid as well, or is this something that you used more as a metaphor as an adult?
This is something that I wrote when I was a kid, yeah. When I was pitching it before the book sold, I was joking to my friends that this book is just an excuse to publish the story that I wrote when I was 12. And I got to include moments from the story all throughout the plot until the last moment in the book is where that book kind of concluded, which is the moment that is actually setting up for sequels. I was writing like a trilogy, right? So I finished like the first book in the trilogy when I was a kid and then never wrote the other ones. But it felt like it paralleled what was going on in my actual life very well, which fit the theme of Just Pretend, about how storytelling can be a way to process what's going on in your life and communicate it to other people. So by sharing that story with like my dad and my friends at the time, I think they were able to learn about me a little bit. And now as an adult, since I can so clearly see the parallels between the two, it just felt really natural to alternate between moments in my real life in the book and then moments in the fantasy story and let them support each other.
Obviously, this has been a very weird time to release a book, but I'm still curious. Has there been any specific response you've gotten either from people in this age group or otherwise about the messages in the book, about pretending, about using your imagination?
Yeah, I started getting some like emails from kid readers who talk about how they want to be writers when they grow up, and that's been incredible. That's been my favorite response so far, just starting to hear from kids themselves. And yeah, a lot of what I've talked about in other interviews has been the theme of imagination. And I think people were drawn to using our imaginations to cope through the entire last year. So it ends up feeling very relevant.
Yeah. Now, go ahead, Justin. You had...
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just going to ask you a question, which you kind of already addressed, but I asked my daughter before the show if she had any questions for you. And her question was, are you going to be writing any more books?
Absolutely. I would like to be writing and drawing books until I am 100 years old or so. Yeah. And as I said, my next one's fiction. We haven't, my publisher and I haven't really announced what it's about yet, but I'm very, very excited about it. It just feels like a really joyful, lighthearted book. It's still in the middle grade age range, but there's sort of like a puppy love element, and it hits on a lot of topics that I'm very excited about. So I know I'm being super vague, but I will absolutely be writing both more comics, and eventually I would love to just write prose as well and not have any pictures attached to it.
Interesting. Why is that? Why is it just doing the double duty, or why would you like to move towards prose exclusively?
They are completely different art forms. So there are things you can do in comics that you can't do in prose, and there are things you can do in prose without pictures that feels completely different. And I've been writing prose since I was a kid, right? Like that's part of the plot of Just Pretend, that it's the fantasy story I was writing when I was 12 is a comic in Just Pretend. But when I was writing it, it was a novel. And I have like drawings I found of characters from a novel I started writing when I was like 8 years old. Like it's just been what I've wanted to do for my entire life. And I also still have like a writing critique group that I started where we critique prose, and I still work on other novels. And I'm also a literary agent. So I end up like critiquing my science manuscripts. So I interface with prose all over the place.
Yeah,
and
you're
would,
deep into prose. Yeah. So you're like, let me do this thing I'm already doing so much.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. The book is great.
Thanks for sharing it. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. I'll pass your answer along to my daughter. She'll appreciate it as well. And good luck. We'll have you back on whenever the next book comes out.
I would love that. This has been wonderful. Thanks.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
take
Tori.
care.
Bye. All right. Once again, the book is called Just Pretend. It's out now from Little Brown. The author is Tori Sharp.
Fantastic.
And it's super fun. The art is great, like she talked about and what kind of we touched on here. It has some really good, smart things to say about families that are dealing with divorce in a very different way. Good stuff. Definitely check it out. Next up, we are going to have another writer here in the stream. His name is James Albon, and the book is called The Delicacy. It's also out now, but from IDW Top Shelf. And James is coming to us from Scotland, where it is super late. James, yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on.
Like I was just saying, I mean, I draw pictures for a living, so I don't have anywhere to be tomorrow morning.
The dream.
Yeah. So let's talk about this book, which I love this book. I didn't know what to think or what it was about going in. And for a good portion of this book, I was like, oh, what a nice story about two nice brothers starting a restaurant. And then it takes a little bit of a turn. I'm curious to hear, when you try to sell it to people or when you talk to people about it, how much do you actually tell them about the plot? And how much would you like us to talk about the plot?
Well, that's always the big question. My wife always chastises me for giving away too much, so I don't want to spoil the many sort of surprises. But essentially, it's about these two brothers who moved from rural Scotland down to London with the intention of starting a restaurant that will bring kind of like wholesome, organic Scottish food to what they see as like a polluted, horrible big city. And the restaurant kind of has a rocky start, but then suddenly becomes really, really successful when they discover this new mushroom growing on one of the brothers' farms, where they're sort of producing all the vegetables for the restaurant. And when the restaurant becomes this huge success, the younger of the two brothers, Tulip, becomes overwhelmed by the sort of glamour and luxury that this sort of luxurious celebrity life he can suddenly afford allows him. So there's certainly a sort of side where it starts off being about like the wholesome nature of organic cooking, and then it becomes very much about the way that greed and corruption can tear apart a familial relationship.
Sure. I was, again, I feel like I could harping on the same thing I just talked about, but I was so surprised because it's so deep into the book when it takes this turn, and it clearly is there the entire time, and you clearly set it up the entire time. But when did you hit on this central idea? Did it start with the idea of these two brothers with this restaurant? Did it start with kind of the end idea and work backwards, or where did this begin?
I think for me, there's sort of two main threads of how I approach the book from the start. The first is the kind of context of it. So I love restaurants, I love bars, I love going out, and I love that sort of restaurant culture. So I do a lot of drawing and sketchbooks, like in restaurants and in bars and cafes, just drawing people eating, drawing kitchens and that sort of thing. So the context was right there. It's like a world I love, and it was really exciting to tell a story in it. And then the other side of it was very much this idea of like the emotional sort of clinch of the story. And for me, that came really early on. I wanted it to be about conflict and jealousy, and about someone who can kind of like enter the world, and not even necessarily in the restaurant world, but like you could enter any discipline with these like high-minded, worthy ideals, and then see what it would take to like have your ideals compromised and sort of become corrupted by your own greed. So putting that into the context of restaurants was like the jumping off point, which was really, really exciting, both to write about and to draw about.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the drawing a little bit. The art is fantastic. It's got like a really cool like watercolor kind of feel to it. Really enjoyed the paneling. Really, really fantastic. Really pulls you into this world.
Pete, did you want to ask about his process at all?
There it is.
I just wanted to compliment him and say your art's awesome. And thank
James,
you.
don't tell us anything about your process, please.
Yeah. We do one-way interviews, but we just throw some compliments.
Yeah, just
see you later.
It's fine.
Yeah.
How did you attack the panels? How did you do the art of the book?
Basically, it's all, as you say, it's all watercolor and gouache. Which, if there's any listeners who don't know what gouache is, it's essentially quite similar to watercolor, but it's kind of thicker and more opaque. So you can get a bit more impact and a bit more sort of weight in the colors. But basically, I'm really, really, well, I want to say I'm really, really traditional. I'm also really, really bad with computers. So I think maybe unlike a lot of comic artists, I just draw everything on paper. Like what you see in the pages is as close to, like what you see in the printed pages is as close to like how it actually looks when I draw it on my desk. The entire pages are done as one thing. And then I just scan them in right at the end and then just like remove a little bit of the sort of the edges of the page and that sort of thing with Photoshop. But yeah, it's just painted straight on. So yeah.
So what are you doing with all the pages? Where are they just sitting?
They're currently sitting in the bottom of a plan chest. There's always this sort of period as you get to the end of the book, because the book's 320 pages and the pile of finished pages gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Wow. And I haven't scanned them in yet because I hate the scanning process, and it's like so boring to like sit down and scan everything in and save it and clean it up and all that sort of thing. So I spend this period of about 6 months when it's like the book is almost completely finished. But if there was a house fire, it would be gone.
Oh,
there's no back.
God, it's so stressful. I'm stressful for you.
Oh man.
Now, so have you worked in restaurants, or this book feels very like internal to restaurants? When you said you just sort of been observing restaurants, I'm curious if you've gotten inside in any way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I worked in restaurants and catering companies a bit when I was younger, just as sort of a waiter, and I hated it, and I was terrible at it, and my bosses hated me. So, and that sort of that sort of theme comes up a little bit with the relationship between Tulip, the restaurant owner, and some of his like kitchen porters, who he treats terribly the more sort of famous and successful he gets. But no, it really comes from my love of eating in restaurants. But I'm very lucky to have some friends who own restaurants, who work in the restaurant industry, who are very kind in letting me go into their kitchens and like draw directly from life. A really big part of my research and a big part of my process is just like sitting down with a sketchbook and drawing from observation. So I was lucky to be able to like go into a working kitchen and just, draw and enjoy,
it's so cool
what they're doing. So
because I will say I worked in a lot of restaurants and bars in my years, and boy, is murder on everybody's mind. So
it's a setting that fits naturally into, if you're going to bring those sorts of themes into, themes of death and betrayal and murder, the restaurant industry is the place to do it, really.
100%. It's a hotbed.
Was there, on that same note, you show so many great recipes and dishes throughout there. Were there things you were kind of fact checked on by chefs, or was it kind of just picking and choosing, going and drawing what was there that night, or did you have people actually craft things for you for the book?
I wouldn't say people specifically crafted things. Some things were like improvised from things I'd eaten myself in restaurants. I'm not like a great cook, but I enjoy cooking. So a part of it was also from things that I would cook myself at home. And also a lot of the decisions are actually made on like, what looks nice. There's a page where we're talking about this mackerel dish that early in the book that the main character cooks. And my main motivation for that is like the texture on the skin of mackerel is just beautiful, and it's like beautiful to paint. So I'm like, if anything's going to stand out on the page, you've got to choose something that's going to look gorgeous.
It tastes awful, but it's beautiful on the page.
I don't know how much you want to get into this. Are the mushrooms real? Like, is there a real analog to the mushrooms you're working off of, or are they completely fictional?
No way. No, they're not real at all. And in fact, I mean, I can't reveal the plot twist around the origins of the mushrooms, but really, unfortunately, very, very late into the project, my dad's partner, who is an arborist and a botanist, looked at the script and she was like, "That wouldn't work. Mushrooms wouldn't work with that." It's just biologically not really believable. And I was like, oh, that's so annoying. But
yeah.
For me, it came from. It's difficult to talk about without revealing the sort of twists of what the mushrooms are doing, where they're coming from. But I think for me, I mean, I actually don't really enjoy mushrooms. I find, like a lot of people, I find the texture kind of gross and the taste a bit funny. The grossness of mushrooms sort of ties into what makes them interesting to write about. If it was something that was universally loved, if it was strawberries. You can't.
I wouldn't buy it if this was a book about some surprising carrots.
Exactly.
Like there's something mysterious about mushrooms. To your point, that even if the botanist is sort of up in your face about the reality here, like I still buy it. Mushrooms are sneaky. You don't know what they're up to.
Plus magic mushrooms.
It's not a plant. It's not a tree. It's not a. What are they? It's a little. They're a little mysterious. So I think
they show up at night
in quite a nice way.
It's weird. They're
weird. What do they want? What do mushrooms want?
What do they want?
I don't know.
What do they want? They want what all of us want. Security, money, a few holidays a year.
Yeah. I always leave a couple of nickels by the mushrooms in my backyard.
Smart.
Yeah. Smart. Right. Otherwise, they'll rise up and destroy us.
Like you're saying, James, I do think the mushrooms tie really nicely into the theme of the book, or at least one of the themes that I took from the book in terms of authenticity, how we present externally versus how we are internally. Why, if that was something you were in fact dealing with, why was that an important theme to tackle with the book?
I think that's for me, it was really, really important theme, as you say, because firstly, it's a part of, I think it's a theme that has emotional resonance for everyone. Not everyone has built up a multi-million-pound restaurant industry and betrayed their brother, but everyone has had a conflict between the self they project in the public world or on social media or in social circles, and then their inner self. And that in itself reflects really nicely in restaurants, because you have this glamorous, luxurious, often very relaxing sort of dining experience for the clients. But behind the scenes, you have this world where everyone's running around, everyone's shouting, everything's on fire. There's a sort of discrepancy between the sort of chaotic high energy, or hopefully not chaotic, but the high energy of the professional kitchen versus the relaxing ambience of a restaurant. So I wanted there to be a similar parallel within the main character's internal self, where he's got this, once he becomes this really kind of successful and rich celebrity chef, he has this dichotomy between his public persona being this sort of playboy personality, and his internal life just being chaotic and compromising himself more and more at every stage.
I love that, especially because it's so true that so much of what restaurants, especially high-end restaurants, are about the artificial calmness of cooking. Cooking is inherently wild. It's inherently intense, especially when you're doing it in that compressed a space with that many diners. So to really exploit that through the characters, I think that's such a great. I love that. I love hearing that.
Yeah, thanks.
I don't know how much dining you've necessarily done because of the pandemic over the time that you've been creating the book and now that the book is out, but has it at all changed the way you view the experience from doing this?
That's a really interesting question, actually. I mean, the thing is that the book took 2.5 years to write. So actually, especially the sort of research and the early conception side of things happened way before the pandemic. And it didn't even occur to me that there would be a time when I couldn't go to restaurants. I was very lucky because my wife and I were living in Lyon in France for several years before we moved back to the UK, which is the gastronomic capital of France. And we just ate so well there. And there's so many really exciting restaurants, which was a lot of the early kind of planting of the seed of what the book can be. But then, the early stages of the book are very much researching and kind of sculpting out the initial form of the story and developing the initial themes before any rough panels get even drawn, and then before any final panels get drawn. It is weird to have hopefully, touch wood, we'll all be back into restaurants soon enough, and people who work in the catering and the hospitality industries, they work so hard, and they've certainly in the UK and I suspect in the US they've suffered so much. So hopefully we can get back into restaurants in a way that supports them, but is also safe for them. And that's a whole thing in itself, which obviously the book doesn't really approach because I was writing before any of that happened. But it was interesting in terms of its timing, actually, because it suddenly meant the pandemic struck when I was getting deep into drawing the final artwork, drawing the final pages. And in a way, it was a little bit of a blessing in disguise because it meant that I just had to like sit in my studio every single day with my head at my desk. There was nothing else. I couldn't like go out
to do.
Go to the pub and have a hangover the next day and like not feel like working. Like all I could do was like go into the studio and draw. So that actually was just a little bit of a blessing in disguise because illustration is such an easy sort of work from home. We're very lucky in that respect. It's so easy to work from home. So that made me sit down and sort of focus and draw really efficiently.
But now that things are opening up again, you walk into restaurants and say, "Don't you know who I am? I'm the creator of the Delicacy."
Yeah.
And they look at my mask and they say, "No, sir, we don't recognize you."
So this book is on stands now. It's available now, and it's awesome and very so dark. Again, without talking specifically about the twists or anything like that. But what's next? What are you planning next? What are you working on?
So I'm working on a new story, which I mean, much like Tori, I'm not going to give any details away because it's in such a sort of early embryonic form. But other than that, I'm still alongside graphic novels. I do a lot of editorial illustration, which I really enjoy. So I've got a lot of editorial projects kind of ticking along, which is a really nice, different pace of work from graphic novels. Yeah. So I'm, drawing every day. But and hopefully, realistically, a couple of years. But there'll be something new and exciting to show you then.
Awesome.
Great.
Sounds good.
All right.
Again, thank you for coming on so late. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your glass of wine. And
take care, man.
It's such a shame I can't be physically there. It's such a shame we can't all be in the US.
Seriously.
One day.
Next year in New York City. All right. Bye, James. Have a good night.
Great. Thanks so much.
Great book.
All right. Once again, that is The Delicacy. It's out now from IDW/Top Shelf by James Albon. And like we talked about, great comic, very
really
dark
great
and twisted and without ruining anything, but highly recommend picking it up. And now we're going to move on with our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It's your audience questions. And for audience questions, this is pretty simple. There's two things you need to do. If you're over on YouTube, just drop a question about absolutely anything in the comments. On Crowdcast, see, a couple of you have already done this, but drop a question again about absolutely anything in the Ask a Question section. Just do what you want. But now let's go on. Other than tonight's special Gotham City drink, what are you guys drinking? Pete, what's your poison of choice tonight?
Drinking a little V2O, a little vodka water. You know what I mean? Just keeping it simple. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Just like
that's not a cause for concern. I mean, having had Pete's drink, a drink from Pete's cup a week ago tonight, I know that it is intense over there. So yes, shout out to Edward Doty.
You had one of those sneaky Pete's and then ran off to a meeting. Were you?
Were you drunk later?
It was confusing for a while. It took me a minute to really reassess, especially like leaving the show after the show it was just a real roller coaster of emotions. I took a second to meet Pete's cat got an intense relationship with that cat very quickly. I feel like real Justin is a real Justin cat.
The cat was just kind of like, how do I know this voice, and why have I been trained to hate this guy? You know what I mean?
The cat jumped on my shoulder and was sort of giving me like "take me with you" vibes. You know what I mean? Like take me out of here. You know what I'm talking about? You get that way.
The cat was kind of like, I don't really have water in my bowl, which is
hey, how dare you?
Do you give the cat V2O?
Fresh water daily. All right.
Wow, Delicacy, fresh water daily.
Man, that's right. Amazing.
That cat eats and drinks better than I do.
What are you drinking, Justin?
I'm drinking a organic wine.
Of course you are.
A little snobby. I'll take it. I'll take the hit.
Well, when you're in Walden, which is where you are right now.
That's not where I am. Walden. Weird guess. I'm in way upstate New York near the Canadian border.
Sweet.
I was just doing an on Walden Pond type thing. That's all. That's what I was going for.
There were two roads in front of me, and I chose the road less drunk. Not true. I want to drink this cocktail, but I just don't have the stuff. I've been sort of on the road the last 2 weeks. I do not have the gear.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. It was definitely the most expensive cocktail that we made so far from this Gotham City Cocktails because I did not have any of those things.
Well, let me say, though, you will use all of that stuff. What is the spicy?
So there's the Ancho Rays.
You're going to use the shit out of that.
So I'll tell you what.
Are you saying?
I got this Mezcal Margarita Kit that I was drinking, which was awesome. So good, from Illegal Mezcal with one L. Really good stuff. Really good Mezcal. Last night, I took the Mezcal, lime, some agave, and the ancho reyes, made a margarita. Maybe the best margarita I've ever had in my life. So good.
Yeah, I mean, that's just great.
It's
jealous.
Great. I'm going to drink it every night. It's going to be amazing.
Let's
get to some questions about probably comics here. Let's see what happens, because this is slowly becoming a drinking and cooking show. This is from Ben the Border Collie. Apparently it is International Kissing Day. So who are the best and worst kissers in comics?
What? Ooh, great question. I forget. Pete, did Mephisto kiss Mary Jane, or just it was a whispering thing?
It was a whisper, you piece of shit.
Okay, just a question. It
wasn't a kisper?
Nope.
Do you think Mary Jane...
A real quiet kiss. A kiss.
Do you think Mary Jane just gave him a little wet willy right on the way out the door? Sort of like...
Edward Doherty says rogue, but I can't tell whether that's good kisser or bad kisser. I'm sure she's a great kisser that also knocks you out.
Oh, my God.
I would say.
Yes. I mean, rogue's a great answer, because that's a kiss you really remember.
Or don't, as the case may be.
True.
Yes.
I would say.
Do you think Wolverine is a good kisser? I feel like that could go either way.
He's the best.
The best he is at what he does. What he does That's not. Right. He's not. Kissing is not what he does. Kissing is not what he does.
It could be. It could be all off panel.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Too stubbly.
People like the stub.
Not Plus to keep harping on your favorite characters, Pete. I bet the Punisher is a terrible kisser because he feels awful the entire time.
Yeah.
He's just angry, thinking about his family.
But imagine these guys' breath. The Punisher, Wolverine, awful breath. Both of them, disgusting.
You don't know that.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Wolverine with a toothbrush? I don't think so.
Maybe he's got a pocket full of mints. You don't know.
Oh, yeah? Pocket full of mints? I haven't heard that story.
Cyclops, I honestly think is probably a good kisser. I'm just going to throw it out there. I have no backup for it.
No, you're just naming
the book.
I don't know.
Real by the book kisser.
Jean Grey, Emma Frost both go for him. There's got to be something going out there.
Emma Frost, good kisser. Diamond Toe.
No way. No way.
No,
cold as ice.
She's a selfish kisser.
Oh my God.
What does that mean? She's pulling your tongue into her mouth?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Hey,
what's a selfish kisser?
Stop stealing my tongue, lady. That's what I always shout.
Wow.
Hellboy,
I think hopefully what everybody's getting the impression here is that we've never actually kissed anybody.
Yeah,
so
we don't know
what we're talking about.
That's a kissing tongue. Okay, Venom, he's a good kisser, big tongue. He's gotta be good.
That's what they like. That's what they like, huh?
Edward Doherty, Chamber, bad kisser. Gotta be a bad kisser. Mostly energy, plasma.
Do you think Batman's a good kisser? I bet he studied. how to do the perfect kiss for every situation.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that story arc where after he finished training in in the wilds of Japan, he then went to the kissing expert.
I remember there was 3 issues where Descartes said, "And now we kiss." It was nice.
Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
Too much tongue, slap. Too much lips, slap.
Great.
Not
all
moist
right,
enough.
Here we go.
Slap.
This is from Stray Bullet. Both guest tonight to put their own experiences into their books. How much do you think this works for superhero books? Is the source material too over the top to pull from any particular author's own experiences?
That's a great question. And I will say, I think that's a big difference that we talk about a lot between Marvel and DC. It feels like Marvel does have, a lot of the Marvel books have those sort of on the ground, seemingly firsthand experiences that are maybe not directly from the author or the writer, but like it feels very much like it could be. So I think it is important. Just because it's fantastical doesn't mean you can't draw on the emotional.
Yeah, that's the thing. The groundings of these characters, the kind of like things that we can relate to is where people pull from. I think that even with DC characters, when they are vulnerable or going through tough times is when makes them great. So, I definitely think there's different ways to inject ourselves into stories. I know when I'm reading it, I'm putting myself in that situation. So, yeah, I think that's the nice thing about drawing from your own life is it you can kind of put yourself in different situations.
Yeah, just to echo what you guys said, I think it's vitally important to do that, and it ultimately makes the comic books richer. Let's go to a question over here on YouTube. Nelson Martinez says, have you guys seen the upcoming Star Wars Visions, the Star Wars anime shorts coming up on Disney? I'm very curious. What do you guys think about it? Did you guys check out the trailer that dropped the other day for this?
I have not watched it, but I am curious. I feel like I have not gotten enough Star Wars content lately. Are you guys feeling a gap?
Are you?
I'm being serious.
Oh, okay.
I'm being serious.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely the High Republic stuff is going on.
Like, what are you talking about?
Well,
dude?
I think you're right. There hasn't been live action Star Wars. There's been the Bad Batch.
Bad Batch. Yep.
We haven't watched at all. I don't think. No. Pete, have you watched the Bad Batch?
We as a group.
Yes. I only watch stuff that we watch together.
I never do anything that we aren't agreeing on completely. That's why I don't know how to kiss. That's why I don't know how to kiss.
Oh, boy.
Edward Doherty, by the way, I just want to jump over here. I think this is a joke saying Saga is a real-life experiences, right? And I think kind of it is. It's definitely about family. But
that's a great...
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a great example of a book that I do feel like a lot of that stuff feels like it's real-life experiences pushed into the metaphor of these different aliens and different space experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to answer Nelson's question, I think it's great. I would love to see more different takes on Star Wars. You know, I think we're really starting to get to this place that, frankly, we should have been at decades ago, where George Lucas just let go of Star Wars, let other people jump into it and have different takes, have different angles on it. And Star Wars Visions is the same way. As long as it doesn't end up like the Animatrix, I think we're all good.
Oh,
everyone loves the Animatrix.
Oh, do they? This is from Edward Doherty. When was the last time you checked BKV's panel syndicate site? Everything they produce is very good. And my answer is not for a very long time.
I check it out a lot, and I do like their stuff over there. The latest issue of Friday, which I keep forgetting to put in our stack, it came out, I want to say 2 months ago, maybe even longer. It's great, and it's something that we should be covering.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait for you to make us do that, because I would love to check it out.
Jonathan McCool is wondering when the Bad Batch podcast is coming out. Pretty soon. We call it the Bad Podcast.
Oh, wow. You see what we did there?
Yeah, we're still workshopping it. Stanley says, have any of you ever cosplayed? Who would you most like to cosplay in the future?
Ooh. Well, I'm very close to a Doctor Strange situation here, so I'm ready to do it. All I need is to shave a little bit here and learn a little bit of magic. Just
you got the beard,
magic.
And as far as I can tell, you have No Way Home. So there you go.
Yeah. Wow, that's it.
Wow.
Don't you mean Multiverse of Madness?
Yeah. Well, he's also in No Way Home. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Pete, have you ever cosplayed? Have you ever done a Wolverine? Like, I feel like you've been growing the beard for years at this point.
I have, yeah, but that's just for me. And I'm also too tall to play Wolverine. Thank you, Edward Doherty.
Not necessarily true. I hate to tell you, Pete, but I think you're just fine in the height department to play Wolverine. And let me throw it out there. Maybe Wolverine's wrong for you, but how about Old Man Logan?
I'm getting there. Yeah, that would be a good. I gotta get in better shape still, though. That's the tough part.
Who would we? I mean, we got Doctor Strange for you. We got Wolverine for you. My issue is like
Cypher, dude.
I guess I don't look anything like Cypher, so I feel like.
But some yellow, just kind of yellow you up a little bit.
It's yellow. Expanded out of your faves. Who's someone that you would cosplay as? Why don't you do Wolverine?
Oh, I could.
Your beard is rivaling Pete.
Like this isn't a comic book character, but I used to. I don't know if I still do, but I kind of look like Gene Wilder at a certain point, so I could do like Willy Wonka or something.
It's very funny to me. You're like, let me take this out of comics. I could just play like an older version of myself, I guess. Pretty well. If that's what you're saying.
I could be Microchip for the Punisher.
Yeah. Nice.
Wait, the one for the Punisher TV show, right? Because that's cool. He's a cool dude.
All yes, right. Kevin has it right. You don't have to resemble the person to cosplay. It's
about Microchip, the guy who lived in a van.
Love.
Yes, the saddest character in the Punisher book, and a lot of people die in that book, and he's still the saddest.
You could be a good Dr. Banner.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I like that.
that was really that compliment, sort of a compliment, really broke through.
I don't know. That's the nicest thing that Pete said to me in weeks at this point. This is from Kevin. What is your favorite comic to recommend that you don't dare say too much about to avoid spoiling?
That's good.
I always overshare. That's a problem. I don't usually do that. I can't help myself because I get excited about talking about a book and the idea of somebody like reading it for the first time. So I always overshare.
I don't know. I tend to like, I mean, this is avoiding the question, but I go the opposite way. I tend to try to go for, first of all, what we do on the show all the time, which is ask somebody, what do they like?
Yeah,
and then try to find something like that and say, oh, it's like that thing, but this. Give it like a little elevator pitch. Don't necessarily tell them anything about it, but just tease them enough so that they say, oh, I like this movie, so I might want to check out this comic.
I also like to do the opposite of that, like have them tell me something that they like and then make a choice that is like if they're like, oh, I like light things, I'll give them something really dark and fucked up to read. You know what I mean?
Actually, I got a good one.
That's not helpful.
Now that I think of it. Invincible. Invincible is a comic book I would never spoil the twist of. And that's definitely one that I've told people, great, fun, engaging superhero book. First 13 issues, awesome. It changes completely by the end, but just read it through issue 13. So I definitely have sold it to people like that.
Yeah. I guess I try not to with Batman, I'm like, it's less about the parents than you think.
Yeah.
Than you think. It's more about pearl necklaces than you think, too.
Right. When somebody says, I like parents, you say, oh, well, you can check out Batman.
Check out Batman.
But
keep reading. Keep reading.
Yeah, you'll see what happens. There's a big twist on the first page.
Thomas Wayne eventually comes back as a multi-dimensional murderer who comes through the portal, takes Batman's identity, and so kills him in certain stories, and eventually.
My favorite type of thing in movies is some sort of Barbatos. Do you have a recommendation of a comic like that?
Yeah. I'm a real time bullet guy. Is there anything that I could...
Yeah.
We got one more question here. This is from Josh. What's your most epic personal cooking fail? Not comics related, but definitely related to what we've been talking about all show long. Biggest epic personal
I messed up mac and cheese. That was pretty sad.
Forget the cheese?
I dumped the cheese right into the water.
Wow. That is, you mess up. It's a core.
It's an epic core.
Is that a recent mess up?
No.
There's definitely things that I've dumped all over the floor, like take them out of the oven and accidentally flip them upside down, and suddenly there's a lasagna on the floor. So that's probably pretty bad. There's also, when we just moved into this apartment, this isn't exactly a cooking foul, but I pulled a pot lid. We have these glass pot lids off of our pot rack, lost control of it, and it smashed all over the floor in the middle of when I was cooking dinner. So I had to turn off all the burners, turn off the oven, clean up glass from the entire apartment. That was pretty bad.
The first thing you
try to keep your kids away from there too while you're cleaning. I mean,
yeah. We were cooking outside on a grill. We were on vacation in, I think we were going to a wedding in Palm Springs. And some friends we were at an Airbnb, and we were cooking a big dinner. Is myself and a friend's wife, John Gabris' wife, Tiff.
Oh, nice.
And she was cooking bacon wrapped hot dogs on the grill, and bacon not good to cook on the grill. And the thing caught on fire, and literally the whole wall of this Airbnb we had rented was black soot. Like it was like I was like, we're gonna have to throw this grill. The place had a pool. I was like, we're gonna have to throw this grill in the pool if this doesn't go out. And so I had to walk up and close the lid on the truly 5-foot flame grill.
Wow!
Oh my god!
Shut it, and almost had to ruin everything.
Gee, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. How much extra did you have to pay on that?
I cleaned it.
Oh, really?
I cleaned it. Yeah.
Good for you.
The secrets I hide from an Airbnb.
I was going to say,
I'm like a ghost. You'll never know I was there. You'll never know what I did.
Let's end on a comic book question. This is one from YouTube from David Quinley. Fave Batman comic and fave Spider-Man comic.
Great question.
I mean, Spider-Man, I've thrown this out just to start us off. I've definitely talked about this a lot on the show before, but Spider-Man Hooky, this graphic novel that came out probably in the 80s, where Spider-Man gets a cold, goes to another dimension, helps this kid against this cockroach being thing that just grows bigger and bigger. Such a good story, so well drawn. Still think about it all the time to this day. Wow. I'll think about Batman for a second, but you guys have an answer for either of them?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm sifting through the...
Yeah, there's so many.
Batman I'll throw out, again, while you guys are thinking. Long Halloween, I read a lot.
You do love Long Halloween.
Love Long Halloween. I'm trying to think what else.
Here, I have one for Spider-Man, and this is definitely just the lens of being a kid when I first read it, but it was post Spider-Man having the Captain Universe powers, and he was sort of even more like he was with Mary Jane. They had like a nice, the relationship was good, but the superhero side was all messed up, and he just didn't know how to be normal Spider-Man anymore. And the fact that was one of my early reads, I always think about that. And the fact it was the first time I'd seen a relationship, and I was like, oh, this is like, these characters seem like they're having sex. And it was the first time I'd really seen that in anything I'd been reading. So it was, that is one that really pops for me.
Oh my God, I just had one, and then your story like kind of blew my mind, and now it's gone.
You started thinking about sex.
No, I was just like, Justin, what the fuck, man? That's a weird, but yeah. Oh, damn it. Now it's
just
gone.
a question. I don't know if you guys know, because we're kind of the same level of experience. Is kissing sex, or are those two different things?
Very different.
Let me say, my understanding is they're pretty similar in a lot of ways. So they start with kissing, and
and then baby happened.
Yeah, that's what happened with me. Come on, you think of comics.
The one where Flash Thompson dies in Spider-Man wears the black suit, not Venom. He puts on an all black suit and
black.
Yeah, doesn't talk shit, just whoops ass, and that's my
pretty
favorite.
recent. The pretty recent one.
No, not the recent one. It was
like after Flash was Venom and he died.
No. It was like way back. It was like I have a T-shirt where it's like Spider-Man on the grave of Flash Thompson wearing the all black thing. It was kind of years ago, but the Batman stuff, like I love when Batman gets sappy. Like anytime Batman goes to like an orphanage and helps out a kid, or anytime like he's doing something nice, or like and especially the dog stuff got me. That dog comic we read recently after Alfred died, and he was kind of sitting there with his dog, that got me choked up. But yeah, I like the mushy stuff with Batman. Him and Cat, Bat and Cat stuff is great.
Just on the Batman side, I'm going to give it up to the No Man's Land run back in the day. Really love that, and I say this a lot, but the relationship he had with Sacha Bordeaux, where she became his bodyguard, and then found out that he was Batman, I thought was some of the best Batman comics they've done.
And we do, I know I keep saying one last one, but we do have one more here. This is from Ramsey Hassan, who was on
Maybe you should stop saying that then. You ever thought about that?
Wow, Pete. Maybe you should think about some Spider-Man runs.
Yeah!
Do you all read any manga? And if so, what are your faves? Manga.
Yeah.
Not a ton.
Yeah, not a ton, but it's like classic stuff, that kind of like the first time you kind of pick up manga, and someone's like, have you read Lone Wolf and Cub? And you're like, what is that? And then you're like, holy shit. So, I mean, that's kind of my answer.
I haven't read very much. Only the couple like we've talked about, Death Note, it's sort of the very obvious ones. It's something that like we read so many comics. I haven't been like, it's time to read a million more comics. But if anyone has a hot rec, please.
There was a point when I realized, oh man, I got to educate myself at least a little bit about manga, because to your point, we were so focusing on American comics and that's pretty much it. But yeah, like you said, Death Note, Pluto, I read, which is really good.
There's a cooking one you love too.
20th Century Boys. Iron Walk Jan is a lot of fun. That's the one. There's also one, I think it's called Oshinbo, that I think about all the time. That's another cooking comic. Yeah, there's a couple more that I have on my bookshelf that I'm not remembering, but there you go. All right, and that is it for your audience questions.
We did recommend Monster. We liked Monster a lot as well.
Monster's really good as well. Yeah, good one. All right, folks, we're going to move on with our next section, which is trivia. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Pete LePage. But Pete, we got a contestant. You want to invite our contestant into the stream?
Sure. So this is the part we give back to you. It's an opportunity to win $25 free in the form of a gift card to Midtown Comics Online. And we have a selected person. We no longer do first hand up guy anymore, which is sad because that was one of my favorite things to say. But like all things, Alex finds a way to pull joy away from me.
That's not the goal.
Away from me. So, cool. Another thing Alex gets to ruin.
Your relationship is in a great place, the two of you.
I believe Jonathan is here, just not on video. Jonathan, are you here? Hello?
I heard him.
Ooh, we can hear something a little squeaky.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey.
I can't see myself on your screen, but I'm here.
All right, we believe it. That's fine. Right. Pete, take it away.
Okay. Jonathan, welcome. Great to have you. If not virtually, at least with audio. Today's trivia is on topical comic news and a small nod to the legend Rene Auberjonois. Sorry for killing that, but...
No, that sounds right. I feel like you dip into French whenever you don't quite know what to say.
Yeah, well, it's, anyways, please listen to all three options before making your selection. Question number 1. In the upcoming Shang-Chi number 3, who must Shang-Chi fight for the fate of the New Mutants? Is it A, Wolverine, B, Fing Fang Foom, or is it C, Angela Lansbury? So it's either A if you'd like to be correct, or you could be wrong.
I think I'm going to go with A because I want to be correct.
All right. Yeah.
Great.
Doing it. First one down. Okay. Question number 2. DC will debut the new Man of Steel and Superman Son of Blank. Is it A, Kal-El, B, Ma Kent, or is it...
Oh, no.
It is A, Kal-El, son of a Kal-El.
Is it son of a bitch?
I was trying to take the high road, but I appreciate you, just doing that.
All right. I'm going to go with A.
A is correct.
Yes.
All right, here we go. Last one. What is the name of the newest DC superhero?
Wait, Pete, you froze for a second. What was C on the last question? So that Kevin can figure it out before you say it.
Oh, Alan Arkin.
Alan Arkin.
Okay, here we go. What is the name of the newest DC superhero team in Justice League number 64? Is it A, the Bat Collective, B, the United Order, or is it C, Robert Klein? So it's either A, don't do it, or it's B, the United Order.
I'll go with a furtive head nod and B.
Nice. B is correct.
All right. Jonathan, congratulations. You are getting a $25 gift card to Midtown Comics. We appreciate you coming on. Hopefully next time we can see your face, but congratulations. It'll be coming your way shortly.
You're better off not seeing my face.
Oh,
come on.
I'm sure it's very cool.
Yeah, nice.
Some people may say that.
All right.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
guys.
Jonathan. Have a good night. And just a quick note that I'll mention for those folks who do want to participate in trivia, we will drop a link to a Google form both on Twitter at Comic Book Live, and also if you're listening to the podcast, I'm going to put it in the episode description for this one so you can check it out there. Pete, what was your secret reference. Did Kevin get it right?
Yes, Kevin. It's the 1982 classic, The Last Unicorn, which I loved and also gave me nightmares. But I also want to give a shout out to Edward Doherty for Son of a Motherless Goat. That's a good joke.
My kids love The Last Unicorn. We watched a lot of that movie. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Weird movie.
Yeah, it is.
Well, don't tell them that Rene Auberjois passed away. All right.
Yeah, nice pronouncing right there. That's
kind of
that bull. My kids scared the crap out of me as a kid.
Very scary.
Yeah,
my kids are all over the celebrity death news. They're really on it. So.
Smart. You're raising your kids right, bro.
They're always breaking it to you. Hey, Daddy, did you hear what celebrity died today?
Oh, and I'm like, stay off Twitter.
What accent did you put on Justin's kids? What was that?
That's how my kids talk.
Accent. That's how his kids talk.
Classic child accent.
You know.
I don't know, man.
As we all know, new comic books always coming out.
Always new comics
whenever you need them. It's all good. What are you guys looking forward to that's coming out this week, Pete?
I'm looking forward to Mammo #1 and also Captain America #30.
Any particular reasons or
Tallahassee Coates, man? Kind of a last around, does a nice little letter at the end of Cap.
Did you say Tallahassee Coates? Because that is very good.
That is, yeah.
I appreciate
T. Coates.
Yeah.
Justin, what about you? What are you looking forward to?
I also, Captain America, very good. I want to give a shout out to Carmen #5 as well. We've been reading this by Guillaume March, and it is it's a book that was seemingly for a long time was all about the visual sort of storytelling that was happening here. And there's really been a lot of additional sort of story added to it, and it's really good.
I'm looking forward to The Nice House on the Lake #2 from DC Comics, written by James Tynion IV. Man, that guy knows how to set up a premise.
Too
and
creepy.
That first issue was terrifying. Very excited to check out the second one. No. And those are all going to be in our Stack podcast, which is the Comic Book Club feed, or its own dedicated Stack feed, Wednesdays at 9 a.m. So check it out. And folks, that is it for tonight's show. Thank you so much for coming out. A couple of people we want to thank. We want to thank Tori Sharp. Check out Just Pretend, which is out now from Little really Brown. Great. Also, James Alban for the Delicacy, out now from IDW Top Shelf. Very cool stuff. Next week on the show, we're going to have a big fun one with the J.K. Woodward is going to be here to talk about the Kana Sutra, something that I'm sure Pete will be 100% comfortable with. And also, Ray Fawkes is going to be here to talk about One Line, his pseudo-sequel to One Soul, one of the best books released in the past couple of decades. So very excited to talk about that. So definitely come back. Also, a couple of other things to plug. Marvel Vision, our Marvel podcast. Check that out in its own dedicated feed. We got Loki coming to you every Wednesday, and we got a Black Widow spoiler-filled review coming to you later this week, so definitely check that out. Very excited to roll that out. Plus all the rest of the podcasts that we do. We're going to be gearing up a bunch of others soon, so check those out. Patreon.com/Comic Book Club if you want to support the show, and also have us shout out your name on the show occasionally. iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow. At Comic Book Live on Twitter, Comic Book Club Live on Instagram, comicbookclublive.com. For this podcast and many more, until next time, good night!
Take care of yourself out there! Out of the water.
Thanks, everybody. Good night. Thanks for coming out.
Guys.
We appreciate it.